Or sometimes the road is rugged and it's hard to travel on. But holding to each other, we don't have to.
A 32-hour train ride during the Ukrainian summer is downright brutal. The atmosphere would be considerably improved by fresh air, but Ukrainians believe the draft makes you sick. After convincing my fellow passengers to crack the window during a stop, I pressed my face against the opening and willed the wind to blow. Then I asked myself the question that eventually goes through the mind of every Peace Corps volunteer. How in the world did I end up here? The stories were certainly part of my motivation as a young writer searching for fertile plot lines. Growing up in the insulated Houston suburbs, my curiosity about how the rest of the world lived was insatiable. On car trips, with my brother and sister held captive, the obstacles of shelter, food, and finances were my favorite imaginary game. I used the phrase, "if I was homeless," as the launching off point to an infinite number of scenarios in which I would finagle my way out of poverty and into a stable life. The first time I heard about the Peace Corps, I was still in high school. And unless you count a family vacation to Canada, and you really shouldn't, I'd never even left the country. But the prospect of learning about the world while doing good appealed to my bleeding heart. If I could have gone straight after high school, I would have. But they wouldn't let me in without a college degree, so it was Peace Corps by way of Baylor. It's a big leap from Texas to Eastern Europe, especially when the only foreign language you know is Spanish. I tried to explain how a decade of Espanol had prepared me for an adventure south of the border. My recruiter listened dutifully, then assigned me to Ukraine. Idealistic and undeterred, I located Ukraine on a map and accepted the position with all the folly and glee of youth. As I would soon learn, no amount of flashcards could prepare me for moving 6,000 miles away to a foreign country. Like many young graduates facing reality for the first time, I was knocked flat on my back. Of course, I mean literally knocked down in the snow by a goat on my way to an outhouse. Yes, Ukraine was full of surprises. My host family's territorial horned goat was a bad surprise. Discovering that I loved beet soup was a very good one. Living with the host family for 3 months gave me that glimpse I'd always wanted of another lot in life. There were no spare rooms or beds, so I slept on a table in a closet. That's exactly as uncomfortable as it sounds. Neither my host mom nor my sister spoke English, except for the phrase, "good morning," with which they attempted to communicate a range of complex emotions. "Good morning?" my host mom asked inquisitively as she pushed a bowl of pickle soup in my face. "Good morning," my host sister said with contempt, pointing to my dirty laundry pile. Far from the global meeting of minds I dreamed of, my host family treated me with equal parts suspicion and fretfulness. At our worst point, they accused me of stealing. At best, they still preferred I keep my closet door open. When training ended and I was placed clear across the country, I didn't mind one bit. In Western Ukraine, I met an English teacher named Svetlana. Her easy laugh and quick wit were just what I needed after an unharmonious host family experience. We became fast friends around her kitchen table, which doubled as my favorite classroom. Svetlana kept a list of idioms on her refrigerator. One day, her table was covered with chocolates and vodka. "What's the occasion?" I asked. Now, don't let the stoic Cold War images fool you. Ukrainians can party. And with 25 national holidays, there are ample opportunities. Svetlana struggled to express herself. "What do you call it when you give someone something to get them to do something?" she asked. "A payment?" I answered, all doe-eyed. "No," she said with a chuckle, "not so official." "Oh, you mean paying someone under the table, like a bribe." A few minutes of translating later, Svetlana displayed the words "under the table" on her refrigerator. Her husband Ole also loved hearing about America. And I must admit, Svetlana and I use this to our advantage. Gender equality may still be a dream in the US, but it's not even on the map in Ukraine. On holidays, school children dress in traditional attire. For boys, it's a suit with an embroidered shirt. For girls, it's a maid costume. I wish I were kidding. There's an apron and a bib and even a little hat. Needless to say, men scarcely lift a finger around the house. This inequality was fresh in our minds as Svetlana and I cleaned up after a party. "Men in America, they help their wives cook and clean, don't they?" Svetlana asked. "They do," I said with just a hint of resentment as I took a Brillo pad to a pan of potatoes. "Maybe you could tell Ole this," Svetlana said slyly. "He might listen to you." Sure enough, Ole was soon drying dishes with a smile. "American husband," he said proudly. "Smooth move," I told Svetlana, who sauntered over and added the phrase to her refrigerator list. Less than a year later, we were headed on a cross-country trip to Peace Corps summer camp at the Black Sea. It was an optional activity for which Svetlana and I had equally compelling motivations. She wanted to practice English, and I was sorely missing the company of my fellow Americans. It was Svetlana's first overnight trip without her family, and we booked a beach hotel before our week-long camp to make the most of the occasion. The open air should have felt like paradise. Instead, I was road-weary and homesick. I missed loud American laughter, Tex-Mex cooking, and watching the evening news in English. But wedged between the Crimean Mountains, the Black Sea is breathtakingly beautiful. I sat on the beach and let the waves lap at my toes. In a few days, I'd be surrounded by Americans. We'd make breakfast tacos like they did in Texas. It would be glorious. It never occurred to me that camp would be culturally shocking for Svetlana. After all, we were still on her turf, but she bristled at the rigid schedule and spicy food. Midway through camp, something unexpected happened. I started to get annoyed with the Americans too. Would it kill them to prepare beet salad? And how about some free time at the beach? Svetlana reached her cultural breaking point when the camp staff assigned a random person to join our tent. To an American, sleeping next to a stranger is what you do at camp. To a Ukrainian, it is a huge violation of privacy. Nationality aside, I felt more loyal to Svetlana than the American camp staff. I'd spent a year adapting to Ukraine, but after 3 days in makeshift America, Svetlana had had enough. "Let's catch a bus back to our beach hotel," she strongly suggested. I mumbled something about a hotel and raced down the road to my next adventure. The first few hours were a bit anticlimactic as our attempt at hitchhiking failed in fantastic fashion. Not a single car so much as slowed down. The sun was setting and we had to take drastic measures. "Do you have any American dollars?" Svetlana asked. I produced a handful. "We will wave these at the next bus and it will stop." Mercifully, she was right. We didn't have seats, but we didn't mind standing as our chariot delivered us out of faux America and into Ukrainian paradise. When we reached the hotel, we feasted on beet soup and split a bottle of wine. Later, Svetlana said something that made every uncomfortable Peace Corps experience worthwhile. Although her pluck seemed ingrained, Svetlana revealed she hadn't always felt comfortable speaking out. Seeing me leave my family and country behind gave her the courage to be herself. I feel that I'm different since you came here. I feel that I became stronger. It's hard to quantify all the ways in which I'm different because of the Peace Corps. I've been back for 4 years, and I still marvel at my bed's softness and Dart's air conditioning. I know I'm not the same little girl dreaming up ways to end homelessness, because I no longer think it's that easy to solve the world's problems. But I've learned that comforting fellow travelers along the way is just as noble a goal.